So it must be that special buy time of the year, because after my recent purchase of a plate compactor, I've done it again, but this time with a concrete mixer. Yay! Through the Aldi special buys, I recently bought this Scheppach Mix 125 concrete mixer, which was delivered within a couple of days of purchase. This is a 550 watt electric concrete mixer, cement mixer as I've always called them, but Scheppach call them concrete mixer, which has a 125 litre drum, which will mix around about 80 litres at a time. I would class this as a small to medium in cement mixer terms. It arrived well packed, although at 48 kilograms or 105 pounds was not the easiest to move around. Pulling the various components out of the box, everything looked well packed, protecting the nicely painted pieces, obviously leaving it to me to scratch to bits over the next couple of years. Once everything was out and strewn across the workshop in the traditional way, I could do some important reading. So this is completely different to the assembly of the Scheppach plate compactor that was only 3 components. Here I've got lots and lots of components, lots and lots of nuts and bolts and lots of different items. This is more like an IKEA flat pack assembly. So I think I'm going to have to go through it diagram by diagram. And I think the secret to this is as long as I get the flexicon assembly, especially the left-handed flexicon assembly, seated fully and firmly against a flexible spigot gear, then I should be okay. The assembly starts from the bottom up with the plastic wheels, which are just held onto the frame with split pins, which seems a really cheap solution and didn't really inspire me with much confidence. The frame is in 3 parts, which simply bolt together. What is incredibly useful throughout this assembly though is that each set of fixings at each stage are separately packed and labelled, so no mixing up of nuts and bolts of different sizes. The drum comes in 2 halves, with the lower half containing the bearings and the drive rack and pinion system, which simply fits into the frame and is secured with more nuts and bolts. The upper or open part of the drum has to be correctly orientated with the lower drum, so 2 yellow and black sticky arrows are on each drum to help you line these up. Then they're just screwed together. Hello! So the assembly up to now is fairly straightforward because things just tend to fit together. By far the hardest part are these 2 paddles on the inside of the drum, because the diagrams in the assembly manual don't really show you how to do this. So I've been working off of the photos on the side of the box, which is a bit of a strange way of doing it. And they're difficult because you've got to sort of bend them in position to make these nut and bolts to meet. So I don't really know whether I've got these round the right way. I mean, if I've got them round the wrong way, I might be mixing my concrete backwards. This is one section of the assembly manual that I think could definitely be improved, although after a bit of fiddling I think I got them round the right way. These nuts and bolts that go through the drum even come with a rubber washer that goes between the blade and the drum, so no leaks coming out of these holes. One thing I wanted from a mixer was a proper handle to be able to discharge the drum in a controlled way, and this goes on next. As well as a bolt to hold it on, there's also a big spring and another tensioning bolt for adjustment to allow it to move backwards and forwards to disengage the lock and allow it to turn. The last thing to be fitted is the motor, which simply slides onto the drive shaft, and 4 studs bolt to the frame to keep it in place. So this is where I officially joined the Peter Millard Against Short Cables on Power Tools Society, because I've got somewhat of a very short cable on this cement mixer. It's only 400mm long, and I can only think the strategy behind this is that when you plug it into the socket, it's so short that that socket doesn't even get to the ground and the wet area that's inevitably going to be around a mixer like this. What I really need is a 20-metre long cable starting in this nice dry enclosure here and going off to some nice dry socket in the house with no joints in between. So that's something I might have to upgrade myself, but don't tell any electricians because they get all stressed out about it. But I don't think I can live with this because it just makes you feel so inadequate. I use my step to get my extension cable close enough to the mixer to be able to plug it in and gave it a run. It ran as I'd hoped, although it is noisy and there's a bit of a nasty grinding rattle once every revolution from what I think is the teeth on the rack and pinion getting too close to each other because the main drum bearing needs adjusting. So I've watered and fertilised the cable and magically it's now about 10 metres longer. I think it's time that we took this out and actually did some work with it, eh? Once I got it out and started using it, I must say it really performed pretty much the same as any other mixer. Even once loaded, there was no sign of the motor struggling or slowing down, so 550 watts seems to be powerful enough. Having the option of various angles of mixing is really good because different mixes, like mortar and concrete, at different moisture levels from dry to very wet, behave in the drum differently. At the wrong angle, sometimes you find the whole mixture just sticks to the drum as it revolves, and being able to adjust the angle means that you can get it tumbling as it should. I found the discharge height just right for a standard wheelbarrow and easy to do with the handle, although because I didn't need a lot of mortar when I tried it out, it wasn't near capacity, which would make it heavier to deal with. Lastly, as this mixer will be spending most of its time outside, I modified a mixing tub that had seen better days to fit over the whole motor enclosure and the cable, just to give some added protection out in the weather. So, after all of that, what do I think of it? Well, I think some of the design, especially the wheels and some of the frame, reminds me of a cheap barbecue, sort of functional but not elegant in any way. That silly short cable from the control box I think is absolutely bizarre and asking for problems when people start using it. The loud rattle that's coming from the rack and pinion on every rotation is not particularly good and nice for my ears or my neighbours' ears either. It should have really been adjusted in the factory before shipping. If I can work out how to adjust this fairly quickly, then Scheppach definitely can. In fact, I wonder who actually makes this. It's so different than the plate compactor that I unboxed recently with totally different instructions that I suspect that it's just made for Scheppach and just branded to them. I might be wrong. So the bottom line is it worth it? And the answer is, for me, absolutely, but only if you're a DIYer or a small builder doing infrequent mixing. I don't think this would hold up very long to a daily beating mixing for a professional bricklayer. I think very quickly the wheels would fall off and that grinding on the rack and pinion would wear something to failure. Having said that, at about £190, which is quite a bit cheaper than the others I've seen anywhere on the market, it's exactly what I need, and I'm sure will cope with whatever I'll be putting it through over the next couple of years. So I'm still glad I bought it. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please check out the other ones on my channel and please subscribe. So until next time, keep mixing.